In this sikha, the Rebbe is focusing on the beginning of the parsha where Rashi says on the words "V'yikchu li truma," you should take from me a truma, you should take from me a donation. And Rashi explains li means lishmi, for my name, for my sake. The Mefarshim ask, what's the problem in the pasuk that Rashi needs to explain anything at all? V'yikchu li truma, you take a truma for Hashem. So the Mefarshim explain that usually when you say v'yikchu li, it would mean taking to me, and it's very difficult to say that about Hashem, because first of all, Hashem owns everything. Everything belongs to Hashem. So what do you mean you're giving something to Hashem? Furthermore, li means that it moved from one place and came now to somewhere else, went from the giver to the taker and so on. But how can we apply this to Hashem who has no body, no form of a body, an image of a body, etc.? What does it mean even to give something to Hashem? And this is why Rashi is saying li means lishmi, for my sake, for my name. The problem, however, that Rebbe says with this is, in addition to the fact that then why is Rashi quoting the words of the pasuk v'yikchu and truma, v'yikchu li truma, he should have just been translating the word li. The question is, we have many other times in the Torah similar sorts of expressions that Rebbe says, like it says kaddish li kol b'choir, and other expressions like that. Why suddenly over here is it a problem when it says taking the truma for Hashem? So the Rebbe says that you might answer that in the case of Kaddish Li, we understand that a person is making it holy for Hashem, but in this case, it doesn't say anything about making it holy for Hashem. It says taking it to Hashem. And therefore, Rashi, by saying Li Lishmi, what he means by that is make it holy for Hashem. Doesn't mean to take it physically. But again, the problem then is, shouldn't have Rashi just said that V'yikchu li means make it holy for me, designate it to me? Why is Rashi just say li lishmi? Some Mefarshim want to say that v'yikchu li means that you're taking me, you're taking Hashem. That when you give truma, when you do Torah and mitzvahs, you're taking Hashem himself. And that's what it, now, since, obviously, how do we take Hashem? What does it mean to take Hashem? So Rashi says, lishmi, you're taking my name, meaning I'm going to rest my name upon you, etc. But that wouldn't seem like that's what Rashi means, because Rashi cannot be expecting for a ben chomish lemikra to understand that from the word lishmi means that you're taking me, you're taking Hashem's name. Rashi would usually explain that if that's what he means. The Rebbe says another point, that Rashi, as we said before, quotes the words v'yikchu li teruma. What does that word teruma mean? Later on, in the next Rashi is going to explain that the word teruma means hafrosha. You separate it. Teruma is something that's separated for Hashem in this case. But Rashi only explains this in the next Rashi. But it's already in this Rashi where Rashi says v'yikchu li teruma, the Rashi says that it should be lishmi, which means that the fact that v'yikchu li teruma is forcing us somehow to say that it means lishmi for Hashem is not based on the translation that Rashi is going to give later for Teruma, which means hafrasha, separation, but somehow even at this point, before we know that Teruma means separation, it already forces us to say that it has to be lishmi for Hashem's sake. So the question is how this works. What does that mean? So the Rebbe says like this, simply if I would see the words v'yikchu li, I would understand it as meaning I should give it over to Hashem. I should designate it to Hashem, I should make it holy for Hashem, etc. The problem, however, is that the word li is then seemingly an extra word, because the words v'yikchu and teruma is basically giving over this message already. V'yikchu means already it should go over from one place to another. The word teruma, whether it's explained as separation or as lifting up, which we may translate teruma as lifting up, if not for Rashi's pirush of hafrasha, of separation. In both cases it means taking it from myself and separating it from myself, giving it over to Hashem, or lifting it up and it's becoming Hashem's. If that's the case, what is the word li adding? Both of these words had already told me that it's leaving my possession and going to Hashem. Therefore, Rashi says that the word li means lishmi, that means to say that I need to have a kavon. It's not enough just to give the money, to give the donation, but it has to be lishma, it's being done for Hashem's sake. And the Rebbe connects this with a Rashi where there's a Mishnah that tells us regarding different things that were donated for the Mizbeach or for the Beis HaMikdash. And the Mishnah says you cannot change from one kedusha to the other. And there's a machloikas between the Rambam and the Ramban what that means. Whether you definitely cannot change from things that were donated as a korban to things for the Beis Hamikdash or vice versa. The question is whether things within that were donated for the Beis Hamikdash itself could have changed from one kedusha to another, from the Azorah to the Heichal to another part of the Beis Hamikdash, etc. Machloikas between the Rambam and the Raavad. Now Rashi explains that there's no problem in changing from one aspect of the Beis Hamikdash to the other. Says the Rebbe that would fit very much with what Rashi is telling us over here. If the way the donation has to be done is lishmi, it's for Hashem's sake, then there shouldn't technically be any difference between one part of the Beis Hamikdash and the other, because it was all generally done for Hashem's sake. And therefore Rashi says that there's no difference between one part of the Beis Hamikdash that you donated it for, it could be used for another part of the Beis Hamikdash. The Rebbe asks two questions on what we just said. Number one, how could you say Lishmi means that the person has to be doing it for Hashem's sake, when one of the Terumos that are being addressed over here is Terumos of Karbonos? As Rashi says, it's hinted in the fact that it says 3 times the word Teruma, it's referring to 3 different donations, also the Machzis HaShekel that Karbonos came from, for which a person could actually be forced to give the Machzis HaShekel for the Karbonos. How could you then say it's Lishmi that he's doing it for Hashem's sake when he's clearly forced? Another question is, why does it say v'yikchu, it should be taken to me, not v'yitnuli, they should give me truma? And the Rebbe says these two questions are actually answered by each other. Because in fact, we're not speaking about the person giving the donation, we're speaking about the treasurer of the Beis Hamikdash, or the people, the collectors that are taking the donations, they should be doing it lishma. That's why it says v'yikchu, it should be taken. So first of all, they have to have kavanah li lishmi, but then it also makes sense that even if it's against the other person's will, it could still be lishma because of the person that's taking the donation. The Rebbe asks why. Definitely, we need to understand why is it so important for the person taking the donation to have in mind lishma. I understand the idea that sometimes we are told that a person that's in charge over other people, we need to have that he shouldn't mix in his own ulterior motives and so on and so forth, not just doing it to scare people. But it seems to be that the Teruma itself, not only as far as the person is concerned, the Teruma itself needs to be taken lishma. Why? So the Rebbe explains as follows. When we are giving the Terumas for the Beis Hamikdash, we're making a dira for Hashem, a place for Hashem, a dira b'tachtonim. Now, the way a palace is made, there's 2 aspects Chassidus explains. Number 1, we have to clean out the place from all sorts of filth and dirt. Number 2, we bring in beautiful furniture and other things to make a place for the king. The Rebbe says these are the 2 ideas of Sur Meira and Asay Toiv. Sur Meira is more of an introduction. It's more of a preparation. Here, it's not so relevant how I got the dirt out. The bottom line is it's out. So in Sur Meira, the bottom line is I stayed away from doing the Aveda. It's an Asay Toiv specifically, where here it's important I do it properly. I'm doing it for Hashem's sake. Here it's really important that I'm doing it without ulterior motives. If I want to bring Hashem into this place. And that's why we say a person should do Torah and mitzvahs even shaloi lishma, because eventually from that he will come to do it lishma, because it's so important to do it properly. The Rebbe says the same thing is true, just like we make the whole world into a place for Hashem, and it's in this system, Sur Meira and Asay Toiv, so too when we're taking things of the world and making them hekdesh, giving it to Hashem, making a truma out of it. There's one aspect that it's leaving the person's possessions, that's taking it out of its choil, out of its mundane status. The next thing is it's becoming holy now for Hashem. And here too, the Rebbe says there's these 2 ideas. The fact that it's leaving the person, that he's giving it, so it's leaving the mundane place, that doesn't have to be lishma necessarily. Even if we get it out of the klip, as long as we get it away from the bad, that's good enough. To be elevated into Rishus HaKedusha, for the treasurer to take it in the Beis HaMikdash, this is where the lishma is so important. And the Rebbe says these are the 2 translations. In Teruma, hafrosha, separation, or harama. Hafrosha, separating and taking away from the bad, and harama is lifting it up into the realms of Kedusha. Where does Rashi say, where's Li Lishmi? When Rashi says Li Lishmi, that it has to be done Lishma, it's before we ever heard that the word Teruma means separation. That means at this point we might still be assuming that Teruma means to elevate it. When you're elevating it, that definitely has to have the Lishma aspect. And finally, the Rebbe concludes off with an amazing heroine Avodas Hashem. We come to be Makar of another Yid to Yiddishkeit. We want to bring him to stop doing Avedas, to put on tefillin, and so on and so forth. And we might say to ourselves, what's the difference? My own feelings and ulterior motives of why I'm doing it, and whether I'm getting a little bit proud of myself and looking down at the other person. The bottom line is I'm getting him to do the right things. So the Rebbe says, because that you might say, at least Sur Meirah, I'm getting him away from the bad, so who cares any other feelings going on? So the Rebbe says, regarding that person, that might be true. He should look at it that he has to accept the truth from whoever it is and get himself away from the bad no matter what the situation. But I, the one trying to be a Mekarev, I'm trying to do a mitzvah over here. Is a mitzvah. And if I'm doing a mitzvah, of course I have to do it lishma. Of course I have to get my own arrogance, my own self, my own mitzias out of the picture. And only in that way will I actually also be successful. Not only is my avodas Hashem proper, but also my success in this mission will also be proper. And as the Rebbe brings in regards to tzedakah, that there's the concept of getting other people to give tzedakah. But nevertheless, of course, we have to do it in the proper, nice and proper way. And the Rebbe concludes with the idea that, of course, G'dayla tzedakah shemakareves es agula.